Welcome to Big Papa Rob's podcast Story Rewind. I'm Big Papa Rob. Here I rewind the story of a person, place, or thing and tell you where it originated from. This will be part 2 of Mind Mush. If you haven't listened to the previous episode 15, Mind Mush, you'll probably want to go back and listen to that episode first. There's a lot of great information on how this band got started. As you know from last week, this story is about Kiss. Something you may not know. Do you know Peggy Bundy from Married with Children? That's right, Katie Segal. Did you know before she landed her acting role, she worked as a backup singer in 1978? She took part in Gene Simmons' solo album and joined a band that was signed by the same label as Kiss at the time. Stick around and find out more things you may not know about the band Kiss. We're going to jump right back into the story starting in 1978. This was an interesting year for Kiss. Each member released a solo album that did not include any other members of the band in their albums. This was also the first time that all current members of a rock band had released solo albums on the same day. By Billboard's ranking, Simmons peaked at 22, Ace's peaked at 26, Stanley's peaked at 20, and Chris's was at 43. Some say these solo albums was an effort to keep the band together. The band was starting to crack. Simmons and Stanley was very driven, workaholic style pressure, whereas Ace and Chris were more good time party animals. The drug and alcohol abuse almost caused the band to break up. It was said when the solo albums were released, the band was hardly speaking with each other. Peter Criss was involved in a car accident with the road manager in a rented Porsche. They were driving in Marina del Rey, California. Both men were high on cocaine and driving at 100 miles an hour when they crashed. Peter claimed he flew through the windshield and was hospitalized with a broken nose, 2 broken hands, and a concussion. The accident delayed his solo album and is why he didn't play the drums in his album. Kiss released their first box set called The Originals that peaked at 36 on the Billboard chart. They also released their first compilation album, Double Platinum, that peaked at 22. Kiss first starred in a movie October 28th on the NBC Movie of the Week, Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park, which was the highest rated TV movie of the year. Let's talk about merchandise again. In 1978, the Mergo Company released a line of action figures of each band member. A second comic book was released, and Bally introduced the first Kiss arcade pinball machine. The Kiss on Tour board game was released in stores, and Don Russ released 2 series of trading cards. Tiger released a Kiss record player, and the toy guitar, microphone, and amplifier was released in 1978 as well. They closed out the year with 31 concerts, which was surprising to me that they had time for 31 concerts with all the projects they completed in 1978. And oh, by the way, did you know Kiss first appeared in an animated Scooby-Doo episode in 1978 titled Kiss Meets the Phantom of the Park? By May 1979, they released a new album the first in 2 years with new music. This studio album peaked 9 on the Billboard charts. 2 singles was released. I Was Made for Loving You peaked to number 11 on the singles charts, and Sure Know Something peaked at 47 on the singles Billboard charts. The Dynasty Tour was billed as their return tour, but they saw a decline in attendance for this tour. The tension between the band members continued, and the first public indication was during the October 31st, 1979 interview with Tom Snyder on the late night The Tomorrow Show, when Simmons and Stanley attempted to contain a drunken Ace whose frequent laughter and joking overshadowed conversations between Snyder and the rest of the band. By December, tensions between Chris and the rest of the band were at an all-time high. His drumming skills had eroded, and he even intentionally slowed down or stopped playing altogether during some of the concerts. December 16th was the last time Chris performed with the group for almost 17 years. They ended 1979 performing 86 concerts, releasing 1 studio album and 2 singles that year. By the end of 1979, Kiss was reportedly making $117 million through record, tickets, and various licensed merchandise sales. The album Unmasked still showed Chris on the cover, but drummer Anton Fig was the actual drummer, though he was never credited. Unmasked was released in May of 1980 and peaked at 35 on the studio album Billboard charts. And in June, the single Shady peaked at the singles Billboard chart at 47. Even though Chris didn't contribute to the album, he did appear in the music video for Shady. That was the last appearance with Chris in 1980. The band auditioned dozens of replacements for Chris, but in June 1980 settled on Eric Carr, and he took on the Fox persona. He was introduced on ABC network Kids Are People Too, and debuted with the group in July at a concert in New York City. This was Kiss's only U.S. show that year. The band toured Europe, Australia, and New Zealand. It's reported that the New Zealand show was one of the biggest concerts in history. They closed out 1980 with 29 concerts, 1 studio record, 1 single record released. You might ask about Kiss merchandise in 1980. I couldn't find a dollar amount earned this year, but the Don Russ trading cards re-released the 1978 Series 1 in Australia for the Unmasked tour. 1981 was a slow year for the band. They only released 1 studio album, The Elder, that only reached 75 on the top 100 Billboard charts. Part of the problem with this album, it featured medieval horns, strings, harps, and synthesizers. This album was to be presented as a soundtrack for a film that was never made. They tried to alter the record's track sequence in most countries to emphasize potential singles The Oath and A World Without Heroes. Fans' reaction to the album was harsh, to say the least. They closed out 1981 with 1 studio album and a single, A World Without Heroes, peaking at 56. The single, The Oath, not even making the top 100 Billboard charts. They only had 1 concert in 1981, and that was in January at the ISU Holman Center in Indianapolis. 1982 proved to be another rough year for Kiss. Made 2 appearances in support of the Elder album, released, one being in January on ABC late night program Fridays, and a second was lip sync performance that was broadcast via satellite during the Italy's Sanremo Music Festival. Minus 1 band member, Ace Frehley, didn't appear for the performance due to an increased frustration with the band. He didn't like the direction Kiss was going with the band. He also left the band hanging, making them perform as a trio at the Studio 54 special concert in New York. In June 1982, Ace departed the band. Ace, in negotiations of him leaving, he didn't officially leave till December. He did appear on the studio album cover Creatures of the Night and on the compilation album cover Killers, even though he did not participate in the recording of either album. Vinnie Vincent replaced Ace and was one of the number of guitarists on the albums. Vinnie Vincent was added to the band and took on the persona as the Egyptian Ankh warrior, aka The Wiz, that Stanley designed as a character. Vinnie officially replaced Ace as lead guitarist in December of 1982. Also in 1982, Kiss severed ties with its manager of 9 years, Bill Onken. By the end of 1982, the band had only had 3 official concerts, 1 studio album, Creatures of the Night, that peaked at 45 on the album charts, Killers compilation album that didn't even rank on the top 100 charts, and 2 singles, I Live It Loud, that peaked at 102 on the singles chart, and the other single, Killer, that didn't even rank in the top 100 charts. By the time 1983 rolled around, Kiss decided to shake things up a bit, which we'll talk about later. In June, Kiss performed for 137,000 fans in Brazil, making this the last Kiss concert performed with their signature makeup until 1996. After 10 years, September 18, 1983, Kiss shook the music world by appearing without their signature makeup for the first time live on MTV Special and debuted their video titled track Lick It Up for their upcoming album. If you haven't seen that video, it's worth a watch. You can find it on YouTube. You might ask, why did they decide to unmask? It was Paul Stanley's idea. He told Gene, let's prove something to the fans. Let's go and be a real band without makeup. Gene was hesitant, but decided that there was nowhere else for them to go. His one concession was to keep sticking his tongue out to keep connected with the past. Gene said later, after the MTV appearance, that he was scared stiff during the show. The first concert performed without makeup was October 11th in Portugal. By the end of 1983, Kiss did 2 concert tours, Creatures of the Night and the 10th anniversary tour, that started in March, and the Lick It Up World Tour that started in October. The Lick It Up album released September 18th, 1983, peaking at 24 on the top 100 studio album charts. The single Creatures of the Night didn't even make it on the Billboard charts, but the single Lick It Up peaked at 66. The band rounded out the year with 101 concerts between the 2 tours. Before the Lick It Up tour in 1983, Vincent didn't get along with Gene and Paul and was dismissed and was quickly reinstated with the band just before the Lick It Up album because they couldn't find a new lead guitarist on such a short notice. At the end of the Lick It Up tour, March of 1984, Vincent was fired from the band in part due to excessive guitar soloing in a concert in Quebec. The firing was classified as unethical behavior. Gene and Paul were reported as saying the firing was not because of lack of talent. Vincent may not have been part of the band, but he did continue to write songs for the band that appeared on the 1992 album Revenge. He also was credited with writing 8 of the 10 songs on the Lick It Up album. Mark St. John replaced Vincent just before the making of the Animalize album. Unfortunately, St. John came down with reactive arthritis during tour rehearsals and only performed a handful of shows before being dismissed from the band in December of 1984. Bruce Kulick, who had filled in for St. John the first 2 months of the Animalize tour, was hired after St. John left the band. Bruce would be with the band for the next 12 years. 1984, the band did 116 concerts, released the Animalized studio album that peaked at 19 on the Billboard charts, released the single All Hell's Breaking Loose from the Lick It Up album, but this single didn't make the top 100 Billboard charts. But the second single, Heaven's on Fire, from the Animalized album, did peak to 49 on the top 100 singles Billboard charts. The rest of the 80s, with the lineup of Stanley, Simmons, Carr, and Kulick, the band finally had a stability again that it had back when it first started. From 1985 through 1989, Kiss performed 293 concerts, released 3 studio albums, with Crazy Nights being the highest charted of the 3 at 18 on the Billboard charts. 2 compilation albums, Smashing Thrashes and Hits, reaching 21 on the Billboard compilation album charts. 8 singles, with Tears Are Falling from the Asylum album being the highest rated single on the Billboard charts, peaking at 51. 1990, Kiss had another action-packed concert schedule, with the Hot in the Shade tour doing 123 concerts. They released 2 singles from both the Hot in the Shade album, Forever, which peaked at 8, and Rise to It, that only reached as high as 81 on the Billboard Top 100 singles. In 1991, tragedy hit the band. March, it was discovered that Carr had a tumor on his heart. It was successfully removed, but more were soon discovered in his lungs. Carr went through chemotherapy and was pronounced cancer-free in July. However, by September, he suffered the first of 2 cerebral hemorrhages and died November 24th, 1991, at the age of 41. The band hired Eric Singer to replace Carr on the album they had started. By the end of 1991, they had only played 1 concert and released 1 single, God Gave Rock and Roll to You Too. This single didn't make the Billboard Top 100 singles chart. February 1995, Kiss stages the first official worldwide convention in Australia. This tour featured a traveling Kiss museum, displayed vintage stage outfits, instruments, and memorabilia. They also performed a 2-hour unplugged set comprised mostly of spontaneous fan requests. In March, Kiss released the book Kisstory, a 440-page, 9-pound book detailing the chronicles of the group's history. There were only 1,000 copies released, and it's also going to cost you a small fortune. This book will cost you $4,250 if you can find one. June 17th, Chris appeared on stage with Kiss to sing Hard Luck Woman and Nothing to Lose. It was the first time he had performed publicly with the band in nearly 16 years. August 9th, Kiss joined the long line of musicians to perform on the MTV Unplugged. The band reached out to Chris and Fraley to participate in the event. Both joined Kiss on stage for several songs at the end of the set. This appearance set off lots of speculations that a possible reunion tour of the original Kiss lineup was in the works. By the end of 1995, Kiss completed 38 concerts. This particular year, there were no albums or singles released. With the amazing response to the Unplugged shows in 1995, January of 1996, Kiss started making plans for an official Kiss reunion with the 4 original members. In April, Kiss officially announced the reunion of the 4 original members and the subsequent live worldwide reunion tour at the press conference on the aircraft carrier USS Intrepid in New York City. This conference was simulcast to 58 countries worldwide. June 15th, the original four Kiss members performed on stage together in makeup for the first time in 17 years in California as part of the Alive Worldwide Reunion Tour warm-up. They nearly ignited the stage on fire during the hour-long warm-up show. June 28th, they kicked off the official tour at Tiger Stadium in Detroit, Michigan, selling out 40,000 tickets in 40 minutes. The 13-month tour covered 200 shows in 26 countries, playing over 2 million people. This tour earned $43.6 million, making Kiss the top drawing concert act in 1996. In 1996, they released two live albums, Kiss Unplugged, which peaked at 15, and You Wanted the Best, You Got the Best, which peaked at 17 on the top 100 live album Billboard charts. Through the rest of the 90s, the band released two more albums with Psycho Circus, peaking to number 3, and out on the album charts, and they also released two compilation albums, Greatest Kiss, peaking at 77 on the charts, and 8 singles that didn't rank on the singles charts. January 1999, Kiss performed at the Super Bowl 33 in Miami. March of 99, Kiss graces the cover of their own issue of Playboy magazine, the first for any music group. In August 1999, Kiss was presented with their own star on the Hollywood's Walk of Fame. January 2001, on the eve of the Australian-Japanese leg of the Kiss farewell tour, Peter Criss once again leaves the band. He is quickly replaced by Eric Singer. This change-up became very controversial because Eric now took on the Catman makeup. March 2002, Ace Frehley declines to do a concert in Jamaica and is replaced by Tommy Thayer, who now took on the Spaceman makeup. The farewell tour was supposed to be the last of the Kiss tours at the end of 2021, but Kiss decides to tour with Aerosmith in 2003. Kiss introduced the Platinum Ticket package during this tour, with the most expensive package costing $1,000 per ticket. This package included a seat in the front 5 rows, a meet and greet with Kiss after the performance, and a photograph with the band. This tour earned more than $64 million for Kiss. As you know, Kiss is still rocking strong. Back in October 2021, Stanley confirmed that the final concert for Kiss will likely happen within the next year and a half. 2 years later now, the band is saying they will play their last concert December 2nd, 2023. Let's see if this really happens. We talked about tour packages in 2003. For the 2023 final tour, the Ultimate VIP package will run you $4,000 a piece. As of the release of this podcast, 15 tour dates left to get one of these. Do you want to know what you get for $4,000? A personal photo opportunity with Kiss. Get to watch them from the pit directly in front of the stage. A 4-song pre-show rehearsal and Q&A. Get on stage for pictures behind the drums, the mics, the guitars. Get to visit the tech area and get a signed limited edition tour poster that will be mailed to your house. I did a ticket check on Ticketmaster for the October 19th concert in Cincinnati. Tickets range from $1,000 for the best tickets in front row of the stage area to the worst tickets that sell for $29, which isn't bad, really. The last studio album they released was Monster in 2012, which peaked at 3 on the charts. The last live album, which was released in 2023. They also released the Instant Live album in 2010, a compilation album worldwide in 2019, a box set in 2018, and their last single in 2015 that was a Japanese-only release. In all, to date, Kiss has released 20 studio albums, 13 live albums, 14 compilation albums, 60 singles, 8 box sets, and 3 instant live albums. Oh, and let's not forget the 4 solo albums in 1978. Let's talk a little bit about merchandise. In the 90s, Zippo Lighters produced a set of 4 lighters which featured a cover image from the band's 1978 solo albums. Get this, there was a Kiss casket that was available from 2001 to 2008 for $5,000. Some notable people that were buried in a Kiss casket included the Pantera guitarist Dimebag Darrell and drummer Vinnie Paul. Supposedly, they sold a total of 2,500 of these caskets. There was a line of Kiss condoms in 2002. There were Him and Her Beauty products line released in 2006. Kiss video game was released in 2000, and trading cards continued through 2010. If you didn't know, Kiss has an official online store where you can purchase exclusive merchandise. Kiss has licensed its name to more than 3,000 product categories, and the Kiss brand has become a $1 billion brand. As of March of 2023, according to Metal Shout, Gene Simmons has the most net worth of $450 million, with Tommy Thayer being the least at a measly $10 million. Oh, and by the way, if there's any Hello Kitty fans out there, there was a whole line of Kiss merchandise with Hello Kitty as well. I hope you've enjoyed today's podcast and that you've learned something new that you may have never known about Kiss before today. I know by doing this research, I learned a lot of new information. I tell my stories and hope that you will gain a deeper understanding of historical origins of many things and the lives of people you may not know their stories. Once again, I'm Big Papa Rob, and this was an independent podcast called Story Rewind. Story Rewind is written, produced, and edited by Big Papa Rob. For a donation to help me cover my operating costs, you can buy me a cup of coffee. You can find the link in my show notes or on my social media pages. Your support would be greatly appreciated. I would appreciate a 5-star rating if you listen to my podcast through Apple Podcasts. And finally, if you have a story idea, please contact me through my social media. A link to my social media accounts are listed in the show notes. I would love to hear from you. Today's music was Powerful Stylish Stomp Rock by Mark July, which can be found on Pixabay. This was a Big Papa Rob Podcast 2023.